The manga industry is a brutal one, and to be able to stand out and have a series that lasts throughout time is something nothing short of impressive. With authors like Miura, Oda, and plenty of others, they are without a doubt deserving of all the praise they get. For this video, I'm going to reserve it for people who have created multiple works that I personally really love and enjoy. So just sort of see it as one big appreciation video for each of these authors and the different works that they had and the reason why I love their style of writing manga, if you will. The first of which is Nihei. Nihei has this amazingly unique way of portraying futuristic settings, one that always manages to grasp me, and I'm very impressed with how he's capable of communicating stories with such little words, as we see with Blam and even series such as Abara, which was a huge inspiration for Chainsaw Man. He also has Knights of Sidonia, Opossums, if I'm not mistaken, that's how it's pronounced. And I actually didn't know this until recently, but he did a series on Wolverine for Marvel back in 2003, so I definitely want to do a video on that sometime in the future. And speaking of future, his sort of sci-fi hellscapes are just a marvel to look at throughout his different stories. I know that with Nihei, it's sort of a love-hate relationship. You really, really love his works, or they're just not for you at all, and I completely understand the reasons why. But for me personally, the sort of mystery of it all and the confusion that you first get thrown into and the amount that you're able to take out of it as it goes on, I think is great. So Nihei is without a doubt one of my favorite mangaka of all time, and if you haven't checked out any of his works, please do yourself a favor and at least try one of them. Now, the next person is kind of in the opposite direction of Nihei in a way, as Nihei has these very unique, out-of-this-world sort of settings versus Shinichi Sakamoto, who is far more grounded in realism. Sakamoto only has two works for me that I really do love. He has a third one that he's currently working on known as DRCL Midnight Children, if I'm not mistaken, that is currently ongoing, and that story, he more so delves into more supernatural things, but his other two works which are completed, which I would highly recommend, both Climber and Innocent, which is actually two, Innocent and Innocent Rogue, are both incredible stories. He has a way of clearly showing that he's done thorough research regarding his ability to communicate the setting in which the characters reside, and on top of all of that, he has this great sense of implementing this feeling of tragedy within his characters. You see this heavily within Innocent. He tackles topics that at times can be very strong, so these are definitely more mature stories, but I think there is a grand amount to take from it, especially Climber, which I think is just one of those personal manga that after reading it, you really do sort of examine yourself as a person, and it's an incredibly inspirational work. Now, of course, with Sakamoto, on top of what he's capable of doing regarding his story and characters, he does a great job with drama and tragedy, as I said. It's his artwork. With this man, I know there's a video where like he's going through his process, and I know he has assistants. I don't give a damn. Dude, you can give me like 30 people. I'm not making that. Like, it's almost unfair, and it really complements his way of storytelling because, again, these are stories that are more often than not strongly grounded in realism, but there are moments where the character's sentiments and what's going on within the character is outwardly expressed with the artwork, and it is beautiful every time he does it. I think Innocent is a little heavy, so I don't know if I could recommend that to everyone, although it's personally one of my favorite manga ever. However, Climber, I would suggest to anyone, please read that manga. Do yourself a favor. Now, the next mangaka I'm a little torn on, in the sense that, and y'all can let me know in the comments, whether or not I did you a favor or if I just ruined your week by recommending you his works, but Asano. So Asano, to my knowledge, originally did very lighthearted works, but that wasn't working, so he decided to go in the opposite direction, but you can sort of see that cartoony, innocent style stick with the way that he portrays his characters. These innocent, very cartoony-looking characters thrown into the most brutal settings, and you see that with the realism and the photo bashing of the backgrounds, where it's sort of like, there's going to be a stupid comparison, but you know how Amazing World of Gumball, they have hyper-realistic backgrounds with cartoon characters. Anyways, Asano, his ability to do what he does with his stories, with the tragedy, with the brutal darkness of our human existence, I don't know if it's his ability to do so, which clearly it is, but I think it's also matched by his willingness to do so. And what I mean by that is another author, Fujimoto, which I'm sure plenty of you would probably have on your list as your favorite mangaka. You know, like, Fujimoto's willing to do stuff that a lot of people in his demographic wouldn't be willing to put into their stories or aren't allowed to put into their stories. Asano does that, but to a degree, man, that's almost unmatched. And he does it really well. To practice, sometimes I'll write short stories and there will be a moment where I go, yeah, let me include this, and then there's that voice in my head that's like, dog, you are going too far. I don't think Asano has that voice in his head, and thank God that he doesn't, because Asano with his stories is capable of getting you attached to these characters, but After reading it 3 for 3 with Pun Pun, Solanin, Girl on the Shore, and right now I've been trying to read Stutter, Demons of Destruction, he not only left me in tears all 3 times, but you just sit there afterwards with this void in your chest where you're just thinking about everything. Just everything. They're very depressing stories, but I think they're these beautiful lessons that you can take away from it. It'll kind of mess up your day or your next couple of days, as it'll put you in this very weird mood after reading his works, but then I think afterwards you're alright, and it kind of stays with you forever. That's special, to write something that stays with someone for the rest of their life. In a way that I guess that's sort of achieving immortality in a story, isn't it? And so it's not just his unique style of going about stories, but it's the impact he leaves you with that makes Asano so special. On a brighter note, we have Kakizaki. The first thing I'm going to get out of the way is the artwork. Artistically, he's one of my favorite. You see his works, you see his style, and it's unique, it stands out. He has this amazing ability to hook you immediately when you read his stories. Be it Rainbow, be it Green Blood, be it whatever's Bastarius, whatever work he creates. It's like reading crack. You need more. And so, man, it's mind-blowing. This man in prison settings is like Shaq and Kobe. And his ability to get you so hooked into the characters, to me, is almost second to none. I've never been more invested into a group of hooligans than whenever I read this man's stories. Again, he just does a great job of wanting you to read chapter after chapter. It's kind of like what it's like for me right now reading Kingdom again, where you get so invested in the setting of what's going on, the characters within the setting, and you just can't put it down. And to me, that's incredibly special. He's proven this with, again, Rainbow would probably be my favorite work of his of all time, but he's also capable of doing other things. His horror manga, Hideout, is one of my favorite horror manga of all time. So he's capable of doing it in different genres of storytelling. He does have sort of a horror element in most of his works, really, where they could get a bit dark and heavy, but whether it's action, whether it's more so thriller, whether it's just pure horror, he's nailed all of it for me. I definitely think that Kakizaki and Nihei are the 2 most underrated people on this list. Again, if you have not checked out any of Kakizaki's works, I would highly recommend Rainbow, although if you're more so of a fan of horror, again, Hideout, it's a very short story completed. Just check it out and you'll see what this man is capable of. This man was to be expected. Takehiko Inoue. What a show-off. What an absolute show-off. The man has one of the highest-selling shonen manga of all time, and if I'm not mistaken, Vagabond is the highest-selling seinen manga of all time. He dominated both demographics. On top of just, obviously, the pure sales and influence he's had, especially with a series like Slam Dunk, which was so popular, in fact, my mom knows what it is. The man is just... What can't he do? I mean, other than finish Vagabond, but okay, I'm sorry, that was petty. But I'm serious. Look at a series like Slam Dunk, and then just see how different that is from a series like Vagabond. And yet he was capable of keeping you intrigued, invested, and a part of the characters from beginning to end. And with series especially like Vagabond and Real, you know, I talk a lot already in this video with authors such as Asano and that aspect of self-reflection, making you really think about things. He takes this to a whole other level with Vagabond and Real, where there are such invaluable lessons that you can take away from the stories. And even if you don't and you just enjoy them and that's it, that's great. But I really do think that there is so much that you can really think about and chew on after reading and while reading these series. And I'll be talking about this with the final person on the list, but it definitely applies with Inoue as well, and that's his ability to have really all these characters contribute to the theme and the messages of his story. You see this with Vagabond, a different character such as Sasaki, Kojiro, and Marahachi, as well as Real, and how it follows the perspective of different characters. And I mean, to have a character as well developed as Musashi would be one thing, but then to also have a character in another series like Nomiya, and then you have Sakuragi as well, who's one of my favorite protagonists. Like, it's insane how he was able to go 3 for 3 with this. At least 3 for 3 out of the stories I've read. He has a 4th that I'm yet to check out that came out in between Slam Dunk and Vagabond. But on top of it all, you know his art style. You kind of see how his art progressed from the beginning of Slam Dunk to the end. I mean, come on now. Come on. Look at this. Look at this. Look at it! For the final person on this list, I did a video about it, I think almost 2-3 years ago now. And my opinion is still the same, despite reading over 100-200 series more later, and my opinion has not changed. If I could interview one person, if you were to ask me who I think is the best mangaka of all time, personally, my answer would be Urasawa. This man What a show off. What a show off. Because you have Inoue, who has 3 of his works within, I believe, like my top 25, top 30-ish. Not that it really matters. Like everything from like 25 to 1 is 10 out of 10 for me. It's just, at that point, I'm just listing my favorites. But Urasawa has 4 of his works. And be careful, because if Asadora ends up being incredibly good, that might be 5. But Monster, Billy Bat, Pluto, and 20th Century Boys, what can this man not do? Just like with Inoue. Now, Urasawa, out of all the people that I listed on this, list, probably has the least impressive, quote-unquote, out of the art styles, if you will. But it doesn't matter, because story-wise, this man has nailed it. I think the only criticism people might have for Urasawa are the endings, but I personally disagree with that, as I think Monster has a great ending. I think Pluto has a great ending. Billy Bat has a phenomenal ending. I could understand the gripes with 20th Century Boys ending, but I think reading 21st Century Boys helps smoothen that out a bit. But nonetheless, what he's capable of doing within a murder mystery setting is untouched for me. His ability to have multiple great protagonists as he does, multiple great antagonists as he's proven, and to add on top of it all, his cast, just his overall cast of supporting characters, is absolutely insane, especially with 20th Century Boys and Monster. It's almost like I'm getting angry talking about it, because how did you come up with it? How did you, because it's like with Monster, recently rewatching it again, it's like, it's not just Johan, it's not just Tenma, but it's Grimmer, it's Lunge, it's Ava, it's Richard, like it's all the Carl, it's all these different characters. That's just one series. And then Pluto has probably my favorite scene in all of anime and manga. It's around like 10 chapters in Pluto, with number 2 in the piano. That's all I'm going to say. Those of you who read Pluto, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The fact the man has arguably 4 masterpieces is just unfair. It's like, what do we, how? Like, if I could have a wish granted, if I could just sit down with this man and just pick his brain for hours, I would. Because every single one of his stories, I love them to absolute death. But at this point, if you've watched me for long enough, then I'm pretty sure you've read at least 1 or 2 of Urasawa's works. But nonetheless, I'm never going to stop giving this man the praise that I think he deserves, because, wow, what an absolute animal. Nonetheless, these are my personal favorites. I would like to know yours down in the comment section below. And as always, this has been The Masked Man. Hope everyone has a blessed rest of the day, and peace.